Can you hear me back there? All right. Well, thank you for coming down, everybody, and dodging some rain along the way. I'm glad to be here at the best place on earth to be to get the best rods on earth, St. Croix Factory. This is really cool. It's an iconic place with iconic rods. I'm glad to be here. My name is Brian Brosdahl, and I said this for many years. My friends call me Bro. You know, and it all goes back way back, way back before the wheel was invented. I'm getting up there, but my name was Big Red as a nickname back then, and I never liked Bro. Well, all these years later, I love it because I'm the only bro in fishing. There might be bros out there that are brothers, but I am the only bro in fishing, so it really helps for guiding. But I want to talk simple things here. I'm a fishing guide, and I'm out a lot, and I have some clients here, and so you're going to hear this not from an office perspective or a sharpened elbow. This is, in layman terms, an everyday event in my boat, and I'm going to see if I can show you some stuff that's working. And sometimes simple is better than complex, and on a daily basis, we catch fish. Everybody loves catching big walleyes. They like eating walleyes. I think, what would you rather do, eat them or catch them? I like both, but they're so good. And perch are good too, but I guide for walleyes every day so I can stay on the schools. On average, I would say on some lakes I have average probably about in the middle 30s schools of walleyes. And some days it takes all of them to put together a good limit of walleyes. In other lakes, you don't leave a spot all day. And so I guide primarily on Winnie. Cass Lake is one of my favorite lakes, and it's a lake that I really have had a lot of trips on. It's a complex lake. It used to be super easy. I like that it's hard now. I get a lot of trips. Clear water, 25 foot of clarity. Winnie this year is so clear. If you're driving a boat along, you look down in the water, 15 feet of water, you can see sand ripples as you're going by. So you know what that means when you're fishing a fish that has light sensitive eyes. Well, this is current. There's a nicer walleye built like a box. It's on a smaller lake, so I really don't want to say out loud where it's at. But, you know, I'm in the Winnie, Lake Winnebagosh area, Leech Lake, Cass Lake, and greater areas. So small lakes in my neck of the woods that I pick. And I try to 1,000 to 3,000 acre lakes. I try not to go too small of a lake. And this lake is a 10,000 acre lake that we're on. So it's a smaller lake in my area. And gin clear, flat calm, what could go wrong? But the fish still bit. We're on the precursor of the mayfly bite. And jigging a minnow has still been hot. This is probably some of the latest jigging we've done since I could ever remember. And it's fantastic. With a jig, you just throw it out there and you hop it. It's a hook with lead. And this is a great time to fish. But now it's changing. So I have the tungsten stand-up short shank jig. It's a great one. When I'm using shiners, I like to double hook them because they're very expensive bait. Goldies, like you have here. Red tails are awesome. They're a guaranteed bite. But just hook it on there. But lately, the short shanks are popular. I use them when I'm fishing with leeches. And with temperature getting in past 66, some of our lakes still are low 60s. The lakes that have over 100 feet of water, they take a while. So basically, when I'm guiding, if you call, say, I want to go with Bro, you're going to go where I think we have our best chance of getting action because I follow the temperature. In the spring, from walleye opener on, I'm following the temperature the other way. I'm following the warmest temperature to the coldest. So we're looking for age and temperature. So in the beginning, Leech Lake is pretty hard to beat because it's big, shallow flats. But then on the west side, it gets super deep, up to 160 or more feet of water. So that's Walker Bay is a refrigerator. But all those shallow flats from Boy Bay, Sucker Bay, Portage Bay, they heat up fast. And then lakes like Cass and Winnie join a little bit later. Winnie Winnie's just got so many fish in it now that it's just good. Even though normally we'd go to Leech early or some of these other shallow lakes in the area, but jigging was still going. We're on a transition now with this incredible heat that we got. You're going to see the temperature start popping into the 70s. So what do you do then? Well, I already noticed the warmest lakes, a jig with a leech got hit 10-1 over minnow. And also plastics are coming to play. But every lake has a personality, and that's what I'm trying to get to. Not so much, I'm not going to drown you in slides. I just got enough there to kind of remind me. Remember, this is your seminar. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you were talking, following the temperature, what were you meaning at early season? You said
Early season, you want warm, because after the spawn, as the water rises, it's not like Erie. When I used to fish tournaments, yeah, I fished FLW and the National Walleye Tour years ago. Didn't stop for any other reason other than I started guiding too much. And when you guide 35 days, go do the tournaments for 4 or 5 days and then come back and guide. It gets to be a much. I really enjoyed them. But Lake Erie, you'll catch a fish and the eggs are dumping out in your boat. That southern strain of walleyes is just different. In our neck of the woods, they spawn and they're like, we're not ready yet. You keep checking, and as the water temperature rises, you start getting closer to 60, 50 to 60. It is game on. But some bodies of water in my neck of the woods, as soon as we're talking about when we're starting out on opener, we're in that 50-degree temperature because that's what triggers a spawn. But we're getting into the 70s. There's a lot more things happening which create this bite. So we chase warm temperatures early and cold temperatures late.
Okay, so you would probably go to where a river flows.
Well, you can go where a river flows in.
That's where you find your warm.
Well, you'll find 70 boats at all those spots, and sometimes I have to be on the outside of those boats. And I tell my clients, don't get mad if someone comes up to look in our boat. Basically, when they get really close, I get a lot of clients who moved in on me. I truly do, and my clients here know that because we're catching them and they're not, and they see everything we're doing and they're still not catching them. There's simple factors that make your boat catch more fish than the next boat. One of them is jigging cadence. Your cadence could change everything. Some people just zone out and they hop like this and they're just talking and they're on their phone and they're jigging like this. Well, your jig only moves once about every time, 2 or 3 times you're moving it. In the old days, back when the Grizz, who was a very famous guy, and he used to, he was a 100 fish day kind of guy, but he used to snap jig like this and just rip that bait. In dark water, they really had to follow underneath and then grab it when they had the next chance. Now in clear water, if you pull it away, they're gone because it is a different dynamic now. So a lot of our lakes that had 8 foot of clarity now, this year in the spring and up till now are in the 20s. If you sit on a calm day and look down, you can see the bottom. You can see a clamshell down there in the 20s. So the Secchi disc readings are down, which is a white disc. They drop the DNR drops down to see how clear the water is. It's extreme. We had not much snow. We had a lot of ice last year, so we had, the zebra mussels were filtering all winter. And if we get some algae is a slime that gets on your stuff. If that comes and we get heavy wind, it pulverizes it, and the lake becomes dark. Fish is like the old lake. But this year, most of the time, with the technological advancements that we have at Humminbird and other companies in Minn Kota, we would target fish and cast at them. Well, I'm watching a little bit of a different trend going on. People are casting at fish, and they might pluck one, but if too many people do it, they're chasing the fish out of entire areas. And I watch it over and over, so I try to avoid that. And even in this clear water, when the wind blows on the lakes that I'm on, which, again, were never clear. These lakes weren't clear, so we're adapting as we go. Drifting on the days we have 10 to 15 mile-an-hour winds, drifting on large, expansive flats has been what I've been doing for 3 weeks. And the fish, they follow your boat. With a safe distance, they follow it. There's a moving object, they follow. And we had a day on Winnie where we caught 58 walleyes. And I'm not out to scorch every walleye and they come back, you burned all your fish. But the lake has a lot of walleyes in it. In drifting, we caught 58 walleyes. And so I don't do that now because I got technology. But as we're drifting downwind, I'll have a sniper casting downwind, and they could see, and they're getting them, and the people behind are getting them, and they just have it a good cast and a sweep of the line back there. So drifting is huge. They do it everywhere. I got good friends that drift on Green Bay, on Winnebago, to cover water on those big reefs that are ginormous. They're 100-acre reefs. So a solid drift. So the Minn Kota motor will follow any path that you put on it, and you can drift. You'll notice a lot of times I have 7-foot rods, but I have 6s, 6.3s. I have 6.8s. So what's the difference? Basically, when I'm out fishing and the wind kicks up, I will take all these longer rods that are nice for casting and jigging and put them away. And I have a lot of different ones. I have Abbott's. I like the Abbott's. The handles are awesome. My customers love them. But I also have Legend Elite. And you'll notice this one here is a 6.3. Well, it's never calm anymore except when it's super hot. Seems we got a stalled system over us. We've had a lot of wind. We pull out the 6s. The 6 to 6.8s are perfect. They negate the factor of the wind. So just remember when you're out fishing, and it's light. You know, I probably use the lightest rod I could find, borderline perch rod, because I'm fishing every single day and I cast thousands of times. And I try not to catch too many fish. I want my clients to catch it. But so this is recent. This is now in northern Minnesota right now. The water temperatures on the super deep lakes, the lakes that have like trout or smelt that have walleyes, there were 62 yesterday. Some of the lakes are 69. We hit 70, and the plastics bite really kicks up. If you want to use a spot tail, if you could find a spot tail, you'll catch a fish every cast all summer long. Can't get them. You know, with the zebra mussels, there's new laws in bait trapping that are really difficult. So everything's getting pushed to plastics, but a spot tail gets a bite no matter what time of year. We used to get them all the time. There was one trapper in Cass Lake that had spot tail shiners the entire year. He kept them in natural sandy ponds, and they love them. But if you got spot tails, then you know the same person I know, and there's very few left. And they don't live after one cast because the water's too warm for them. But anyway, long and short of it, on some lakes, plastics, especially when you get in the 70s, and when I say I'm using plastics, here's an example. That's a smeltinator, and I'll get closer to the camera, but I've got an eye candy grub. What I've noticed as a guide, different shapes for different times. We use the leech, we use the grub, we use the jig worm on a spinnerhead. Spinnerheads are a big deal. This one has the super high-end swivel, plus it's got the Gamakatsu hook. Now, here's the one I like to pull out if there's a lot of northerns, because you get 2 packs. And we go through jigs like crazy. So these survived yesterday and the day before. I still have some left, but I go through them. I think I impact their numbers at this company. But I go out on Winnie, I go out on leech, and I could go out and cast. And if just me fishing, I could catch my limit of walleyes every day on that. And it's just a matter of going through big ones to get down to smallest, but that's a fact. Tie this on, but no 3 people can fish this bait the same. The first thing I want to tell you, it's all about cadence. Why does this work? Because right now we just got through midge flies hatching for 5-6 weeks nonstop. As soon as the water gets into 50s on calm days, but where you're fishing panfish, you'll see little things coming out of the water like a reverse raindrop. They're midge flies. Midge flies come out all the way till fall. But the big eruption here was just in the past 4 or 5 weeks. So we're coming off of midge flies, which creates a huge walleye bite. What does it do? It takes all these walleyes scattered across all over these chains of lakes or big lakes and puts them on the edges facing the basin. So when you're on the edge facing the basin on a sharp structure that has a sharp flat, a big flat with a sharp break, that's going to have a lot of fish. And it's because of the midge flies. I love midge fly time. It puts all these fish into big schools. And with clear water, it's different. You go back 14 years ago when everything was just a normal lake, and there would be walleyes scattered for a quarter mile. Now the walleyes are the size of this room. And then the next school might be the size of this part of the room. They are like bait fish in a tank right now. So are the good old days past us? I don't think so. As I'm starting to see more and more fans of the places I fish every single day, having a good time, and forward viewing helps, but it doesn't always get fish. And true story, we have agents to check to make sure you're not dragging a big pile of milfoil in the lake. They ask where you been last, where are you going to. They have a decontamination chamber. One day I got there, the whole axis was full, and I had to park really far away, and it was super busy. So we come in, they got their 18 walleyes, and we're heading in. And I noticed a lot of down rods. About everybody had forward viewing. And that day I talked to the agent. There's nobody around. I said, did we break out in war again or something? Because usually stuff happens like that. I've been on the lake ever since the last 3 wars we've had here. And you see it. And he goes, no. Everybody left. The fish didn't bite. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, how do you do? We got a limit. And so how many people had forward viewing on their boat? He goes, all of them. Some had 2. So it's not forward viewing that gets the fish. It helps you see them. The people seen them, but couldn't get them to bite. So change up what you're doing. If you want, you don't want to be that statistic. The best you heard was 3 fish leaving that day. I had a nice, smooth, easy load because there's nobody there. Everybody left. And it's all about barometric changes. You could have the worst barometer ever. And I seen it here. Last week, I said 2 really low readings. And I said, all we need is for it to jump a 1/10 or 2/10. And it did. And we limited it up. So you got to watch that stuff. And if you roll through one of your favorite spots or a spot that they talk about at the bait shop that you go visit on the way in, make sure you check back. And so the real idea about this, because of mayflies, has anybody seen a mayfly swim across the water or in the water? They swim like, they're really cool watching them. They're like the best looking lure ever. Well, yesterday and the day before, I could see mayflies in the clear water swimming, and the fish come up and eat them. We throw a leech on a bobber right next to there. I could watch a walleye come up, sniff it, and leave, and some just drove by it. Throw a crawler, they come up, sniff it, leave. I even had a few spot tails left. Throw it up there, they'd follow every single time. I slapped it off to switch baits, and 2 walleyes came in and ate the minnow. So, true story. I watched it. They come right up to the boat. So, the noise created that factor. This gets them to bite. So we always used to drag spinners with crawlers this time of year, but I'm not the trollathon kind of guy. Even in the old FLW, I couldn't stand the trolling bites. And now they're casting at all of them. I knew it. I threw everything but the kitchen sink, except back then the fish might have been there and I'm casting over here or over here. Now you can throw it in front of them. So there is something to be said about accuracy, even on the Great Lakes. But so this mimics crayfish, this mimics bait fish, and everything. Tails change later. I'll add a paddle tail when the water gets in the 70s. That mayfly hatch happens. Then you can start ripping stuff. You can start rattling stuff in these northern stretches of lakes that we have up here. From the lakes up in John Myrie country to my lakes up in northern Minnesota, the instinctive reactive strike bite that everybody loves. They like ripping puppets. They like ripping rattling baits and paddle tails. That's coming. But this is the slow, gentle, flappy little tail, the eye candy. And I've used a lot of plastics where I settled on it. And of course, so that is one thing. And it's all about the crayfish molting and the bug hatches. Now, the beginning of it, and a good bait keeper is everything. As you can see here, there's this little barb here, holds plastics on nice. And as we go on here, there's a close-up of it. If finally a walleye angler can get and choose different hook sizes, you don't just get, there's your hook size for each weight. You choose hook sizes because this is in the bass territory, and it's a professional bass style lure, but it works great for walleyes. Now, plastics on that works really good, but dragon spinners with crawlers are still working. A lot of the old school guides in my area still do that, and there's an art to it. But everything that you're dragging, the sinker, the spinner, the water so clear, they can see the whole operation going by, and they'll still follow it. But right now, as we're going into this next week, we're seeing mayflies starting to come up more, and they're going to explode. But it creates a super good bite. We got about on the lakes that are 70 degrees, we've got about 5 days, and they're going to be everywhere. They're starting to come out right now. And so the big perch, the walleyes, everything's going to go nuts now for the next 5 days. And then the following week, I'm going to be looking for colder temperatures. I want to get the pre-mayfly thing, and that's what I do. The nice thing is, if I take a right at my driveway, there's 1,000 lakes that way. If I take a left, there's 700 lakes to the left. But not all those lakes have big schools of walleyes. They could be a bass lake, walleye lake, but our true walleye stuff, it's a cool area, just like you have here. You get up north of Hayward, I always hear about those legendary lakes. But so that's so people always ask me scent. I'm a person that watches fish, and I've watched them come up to plastic baits and eat them. But if it's laying on the bottom and then they hit it, you can't tell me it's scent. It's not scent. And I've had them on super clear lakes like Leech and Cass, where I could see walleyes almost to that wall on a calm day. And you're pulling a paddle tail, an eye candy paddle tail that you laced up with scent, and you let it hit the bottom. When they pick it up and you see your tail going sideways and you set the hook, that's impressive. And I would have never thought, going back 10 years, I used plastic for the last 30 years, but going back, I would have never thought the plastics would be this soft. And you could go to the shelves, you could see all kinds of new stuff coming out. But a lot of this stuff is coming out of the bass world right now. Bass is really killing it. And you say bass in my neck of the woods, and people's eyes get tired, like they just like go to sleep. But we're loaded with bass, but we got more walleye anglers because they love eating them, right? So when I talk about stuff like plastics and drop shot, where you're going to hear all this stuff's in my boat all the time. Now, drop shot last week was kind of so-so, but now coming up this week, it's going to be a game changer. And I actually had a day 2 weeks ago on Winnie where I had to tie super long drop shots. I got one here. So my drop shot actually is 10 feet here. And then you add a sinker. So you're pitching it out, and the walleyes are holding it 8 to 10 feet off the bottom. And they're almost up to the surface some days. I always thought that was clutter. And I started casting at them. No, they're walleyes. Everybody's saying there's no walleyes anywhere. They're looking at side image and they don't see nothing. You know, and so I tie up a drop shot and I present my minnow, my leech, my crawler up there at their level, and we're killing them. Now, casting, it's another thing because you want to definitely have a 7.6 rod, and then you're standing up to throw it, and it makes a big difference. So that is, and then you can do a lot of things with it. I'll show you here in a little bit because I want to make sure you know this, but we call it the stealth rig. For many years, when I fished tournaments with my late great Paul Nelson, my partner, called it the stealth rig because we don't want to tell anybody about it. That's why we call it the stealth rig. I don't even know what it's called. I learned this in saltwater 3 decades ago, and so we do a simple one where I just make a loop and I tie it, and then you pull it through. That's all fine and dandy. But if you're going to trim it and snell it, then you got to add another loop to the backside and make kind of a live bait loop knot out of it. And I'll have that here to show everybody as we get going here. But scent. Make sure you scent up your baits. And if you're in an area you're just ripping it through, you don't need scent. You need scent if you really have to sell it to them. Remember, there are lakes that have a lot of fish in small areas. You scare one fish, it's like a white-tailed deer when that tail goes up, the whole herd follows it. And I have seen it many times. It's not beginner stuff in my neck of the woods. I go out in there, and at night I'm thinking about it all night. Am I gonna get like 4 walleyes here? And we seem to always get our limit. Some days we're close, but the walleyes are really big. They're fat. They're because there's water so clear, it's perfect for them, and they have great growth rates. We have rusty crayfish. We have everything else, but so scent it up if you're in a place where they're real fussy and you need to stop, but you don't want to run out of room. And what I mean by that, when you're fishing a school of walleyes from here to that wall, you pitch to them and then you bring your bait through them. If they're following, you only got that short distance to sell it to them. And I see it all the time. You bring them up to your boat 3 times, that school is gone. You just blew it up. So you have to make them bite before they get to the boat. And that's the key thing. And that's where talons make a big difference. Now, tungsten or deep V, I always use tungsten, but sometimes they're like light. And I say we shouldn't throw out lead yet because I like how light it is. And the bigger size But tungsten's been killing it, and I like it. I just have a lot of northerns in my area, and they eat all my stuff.
Good question.
Yes.
All right, so when you were talking about scenting,
Mhm.
what are you specifically using?
Well, I'm not sponsored by any scent, so I have all of it. The one thing I will tell you, anything that's an oil, don't get it on you. I had to really dig around to find some pants without oil stains on them, or shiner eggs. They never come off. You'll have a bleach stain before you'll get rid of your shiner eggs. But I use a little bit of everything. Dr. Juice, I like Procure because I get the big guide size bottle, Procure. And where I found out about this stuff is when I was in a tournament on Lake Erie. We scented up one crankbait and then washed them. And I didn't know it, but my partner was switching the crankbait to different sides. And everywhere that crankbait was, he caught fish. All of our weigh fish, all of our 26 to 29-inch walleyes came off that one crankbait, even though we had a lot of similar crankbaits. And that really opened my eyes. And I've had many, many times where I've had the fish coming up in clear water. Now, this doesn't, you don't have to worry about it as much late summer because with all the algae in our lakes, it's going to come out of its dormancy, and it's going to make the lake a little bit slimy, but it pulverizes in darkest lake. But so if you're looking at scents, there's Dr. Juice, there's Procure, and there's a Billy Rub, and I've caught them on all of them. But I'm a guy that like volume, so I just buy a big thing of Procure. Now, different flavors. I'm not a garlic guy, but I have friends at fish tournaments who love garlic. You smell their lures and they're just terrible, but they catch fish on. I use Squid is mild. Squid has been on lures for many, many, many years. So the first thing I think of, all these companies had squid for so long. It's better to buy plastics, I think, unscented and then add the scent that you want to it. But remember, only do a couple of them. I've laced entire eye candy packages where I've gone through and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to put this stuff on there. And you put it on there. And then you watch a walleye come up to it, shake his mouth, and then swim away. You're like, uh-oh, I just sent it up like 9 packages with this stuff. So now I just do a couple of them. And what I found early in the year, krill, which is a saltwater shrimp that the whales got to glean out with their balleens, is super good. Warmer temperatures, crayfish molting periods, fantastic. So I have krill, but I don't pull it out until right about now when we get in the 70s. Squid is mild, and it's still a scent. And does a walleye know what a squid is? No. But they still eat it. So, and I've tried the shiner and all this other stuff. But so paddle tails now, they want more action. And if you truly watch mayflies when they're out hunting and cruising around, they really have a lot of action. It's pretty amazing. And but this is simple. They're small and they fit really nice in a lure. Jigworm, grub up until 70s. Switch over to the paddle tails, or even go back to the jigworm in deep water. And it's not about getting to the bottom fast. And there's another story. I was out one day and they're covered in boats. Every lake I'm going to fish was real busy. You get in July. If you casted a jig out with a leech, you'll have fish look at it for a little bit and then nothing. You throw a bobber, they'll swim up, swim away, over and over. No matter what you throw, they just look at it and leave. You throw a super light crappie-sized jig, like a 16th ounce, even in 22 feet of water, and it's falling. Every fish down there knows it's coming because you're in clear water. So we're pitching, and as soon as we get near the bottom, we reel it in and then recast. And the bites would come, the fish would come up and eat it. There's another day that the parking lot was empty when we came in, so it was perfect. So little tips like that. So match the hatch. Remember that saying. And then, of course, flukes. These flukes move so much. There's a lot of there's 1,000 flukes on the market. This one I like because you can just flick it a little bit and it moves. And it's not about ripping it. Remember, ripping it, if you move it too far, the fish wanted to maybe come look at it, maybe eat it, and you just moved it too far away. And this is something you could just move, your subtle movements, like, almost like slow, like you're just jigging for crop. I have to, on the way out to the spot, and all my clients know this, I ask them how hard they set the hook. And I said, don't set the hook today. Well, what do you mean by that? I said, your fishing reel, that's how you're setting the hook today. Because we're only going to get about 22 bites. It's really tough right now. So you set the hook, you reel down, and then, so if I were to go into your fish, my arm is the fish. No, it's not a St. Croix. I know it's my arm. But you reel the reel really fast till the rod goes down, and then you cinch it in. I don't want to say the word set, because people set the hook so doggone hard. They're hooking the fish and ripping their lips off. And I've seen walleyes where we brought them to the boat, you zipper lip. So the whole side of their head is ripped and the hook is just, you could just flick it out. So set the hook with your fishing reel, especially during tough times. Every walleye pro that's been out there, all of them know. The ones that have been traveling, the tours and stuff, they all know. You ever watch how they set the hook? They set the hook like it's their last chance every single time. You know, that's how it is. Sometimes you can put together a bag and get 5 bites. And if you set the hook, someone in the boat's going to be looking at you, maybe throwing stuff at you. And that's how it was in a walleye world. Sometimes you catch 100 fish. You know, those are the great days. But you treat everyone like it's a gift. Reel it down. The other thing I ask people is, if you get a bite, don't jerk it. So don't just set the hook. You might have bow in your line, you might have slack. When you get a bite, it's the second, third pump. So the fish is on there like this. That third pump, reel it down, set the hook. You don't go, oh, my rod moved. No, you're just trying to throw bait away. Come on, just. So the second or third pump, you set the hook. Sometimes they don't hang on to it. Sometimes they hit it real quick, but that's mainly around opener. This time of year, they commit to it. And don't be afraid to try different stuff. You know, for instance, like here, I never, you know, of course, smelt is one of those things. It's not showing up here. That's a tried and true in my area. I always went for this because it reminds me of shiners. That one's super hot. This one draws their attention, but this one with that white and silver, it looks really good out of the package. I love it. So when the crayfish start molting, I start smiling because all these things you want to throw. Now, if anybody's going to ask about crankbaits, no, I don't. I hardly use them with clients. I've got a lot of holes in my body from miscasts. I don't want any more treble hooks in my boat. I love puppet minnows when I'm by myself. Those things can break your sunglasses, knock your hat off. So when I'm fishing with people, I look for minimal damage to the bro. And so these kind of, you get hit by those, they're kind of soft, you know. And if you're in a windy day, you get wind loops. And I always know it's going to happen sooner or later, even with the best anglers. I get guides in my boat from other states. I get people who fish tournaments. They just want to go unplugged. They want to show up and not have to look for fish. So, and I get people hold the reel upside down like this. It's all fine. I'm ready for it. My nerves are shot a long time ago. I'm ready for it. And so crayfish actually walk out of their skin this time of year. It's crazy. But, you know, in different places, if you could identify that and take them, you could sell them. They sell for a lot of money, especially on the bigger Winnebago system, these other places. There's people looking for molting crayfish. And, well, I don't have time to do that, but it's very interesting. And fish can know or identify those crayfish. So you get lakes that have massive amounts of crayfish all over these sandbars. You look, and it just looks like an army lined up to kill something. They will just swim through at night and pound one that's missing its shell. They grow back their shell in less than a day. You know, like 12 hours, it's already getting leathery. So in the first couple hours, those fish are just going to annihilate it. So remember, crayfish colors are good. And I see people are starting to understand that. And it's not the bass world. If you catch a walleye anywhere in northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, your live well is going to have crayfish pieces all over it all summer. It's crazy. You have to clean out plugged up live wells. And they're eating them. Some of them are eating crayfish that are still hard, but they walk out of their shell. So I think that really soft plastic and that spinner is fantastic. I mean, and I'm not going to troll up and down a bar. I have guide friends. When they're working a bar and they're trolling, I'm like, get ready. You're going to catch some fish. Here they come. And we're pitching, we're netting fish, and they're getting them. But instead of getting a fish once every pass, I want to catch a fish every cast. That's what I like. If you really want to have fun and catch a lot of fish, casting is still a way. Drifting, though, last week the fish were like a bomb went off. They're scattered. It was miles. And so you could troll, but they move away. Drifting, it's just great. So don't forget to try that, like the good old days. And when the crayfish molting period is going in, that looks like crayfish, looks like minnow, looks like something they're going to destroy. Some great colors, and they work anywhere on the planet. You might even catch a bass when you use these, but unintentional, of course. We caught a big bass the last couple of days, and I noticed something. I could see down in the water in some places, you're fighting a walleye, and I could see it from here to the back of the room. And as it's getting closer, you see other walleyes next to them, and then you'll see a big smallmouth bass. And these big smallmouth bass, as soon as you hook a walleye, they're following it around because they know that it's going to lose that leech pretty soon. And you see the walleye shake and the leech falls off. Smalley's there, he's gone. He grabbed it. So smallies don't just follow smallmouth bass; they follow walleyes when you're hooking them. It's absolutely hilarious. So I love fishing Clearwater, but sometimes I like a restful day. Give me some regular dark water lakes. They work really good. Remember when you're how many people here? First, let's ask how many people here have forward viewing. How many people have side imaging? Okay, side imaging. We use that a lot. There are times with forward viewing, you could be over the fish. They're down here. Side imaging sees their shadows. So it's an older technology that is so on. I still have friends that use it on the bay. They use it on Lake of the Woods. They use it on Leech, Cass, Winnie. The side imaging shows it. Just remember, when you see those fish and you pitch, you throw a bobber, drop shot, a jig, just slightly back a little bit because it's like 1 second later, so throw it back. But we use side imaging on really low pressure days. Walleyes get right down to the bottom. Side imaging sees them. Forward viewing, you notice the fish swimming, and you can still see lumps on the bottom. But side imaging is very important. 360 also. Where I like 360 is if I'm fishing Rainy Lake, I don't know there's a rock that's about to rip my trolling motor off the front of the boat. So I'm looking, and there it is on 360, so I can actually fish around it. You can do that with forward viewing too. Some people will, but 360 side imaging is always going to be on my boat. It makes a big difference. So pitch past the fish and swim up to them. If they don't hit, move on. If you keep peppering those fish, they're going to be gone. Try them a little bit, come back, remember where they were, and then you're not going to chase them. Or, as I like to say, blow up the fish. Where'd that term come from? My buddies and I used it in the tournament. Ice fishing. Uh-oh. Oh, good. All right. Well, everything's cool. So in ice fishing, when you're using an underwater camera and a pike comes in or you do something wrong, you scare one fish, the whole school takes off. If you play in fast motion, because we filmed many times, and you watch it fast motion, it looks like the whole school blew up. You could play a bomb noise to it. Well, in open water, you keep pitching those fish. If one leaves, they're all gone. And some of the toughest lakes in Minnesota are where I guide right now. They used to be the easiest. Now they are the toughest lakes. And but they're not tough when you get over that hurdle of cadence, technology, and presentations. In my boat at any given time, I have tungsten jigs all year long. Because, yeah, we throw minnows, we throw leeches, we throw crawlers, we throw plastics. But short shank versus long shank, remember, if you use a short shank jig, you get more action out of your plastic. You just got to pause for a second. Like when they grab the eye candy leech, you'll feel it like a perch, but it's a walleye. Just trying to get up on there, do the thing. So I have those. I have the underspins, a few smeltnators. They get bit off. We're on deep fees the rest of the day because they're expensive for me too. So those, and then eye candy plastics, and I have a lot of the smell color. But I also have bobbers. And when you're using a bobber, there's a little technique to bobbers also. You see how I have it wrapped here? I have it wrapped like this, real tight to there, because I don't want that bobber slapping around in the wind when I'm out in the boat. So I take and I wrap this around up here and down. And this is an Avid rod. I love it. This is like way too nice for a bobber. There's no, poor bobbers, right? Bobber rodding. You you can't use a rod that's so nice that you don't get the jig with or feel with. It's a bobber rod, but this rod's way too nice. It's an Avid. This thing's awesome. But so you'll see I have a long leader of line, and sometimes they have 4 feet. They're paying attention up too. And I have a slip sinker here. But I also use inline sinkers that have a swivel sinkers, top and bottom. Why? Because when you're throwing it at the fish, you got to hurry. You got to get it out there now. You want it to fall down in there. And I think I have that. I could show you here real quick. They're hard to find. I had to dig around for them a little bit, and I got it right here. This is a swivel sinker. See that? And the thing is, you don't need a slip sinker when you're bobber fishing. You don't want it to move. You don't need it going up and down. You want to throw it in there, and the only thing moving is your bait down into the spot. So this, you could do this. You could just lock any old sinker on. You could use a toothpick, whatever. And so this is ready to go. But I'm using braid because I'm in zebra mussel waters, and I've just had bad luck with monofilament. One little nick, it's gone. Only fish we lose in a year's time is when I'm using non-braid. But fluorocarbon, this could be all strafed and full of little slivers, and it still goes. Yes, Bear?
It reminds me, you know where I fish, so.
Yeah.
You got braided line on all your lines. Do you ever go braided line straight to your jigs? Or do you?
In my neck of the woods, you could use braided line straight to your jigs. In the after opener till about the first week of June, you could. You're still going to catch less fish. And in the fall, like fall in darker bites, but in the clear water, if you use braid to your sinker and you're dragging a rig with a red tail, the boat next to you that doesn't have braid to their sinker is going to outfish you 20-1. And it's true. In tournaments, there's been some big money tournaments on Cass Lake, and those who say, I'm just going to tie a sinker to my braid, that have a leader, they sit there and watch everybody else catch the fish. Don't be that person. So I will tie a fluorocarbon, 15 feet of line to the sinker, then fluorocarbon again. But monofilament's nice because it floats. It keeps from dragging on the bottom. But I'm just deathly afraid of getting cut and nicked and losing fish. The only fish we lose are when we're not using braid to fluoro. And fluoro, I've been known to, not use a net. I swing it in, Bassmaster, Bro, Walleye. And I got to tell you, I test my lines all the time, and they never break. One thing I will say, when we're getting less bites, you want to make sure you use the net. But if it's a 17, sometimes 18, 19 gets heavy. Our walleyes are really plump. Winnie walleyes are a little bit thin. The Cass Lake, some of the Leech Lake ones, they're weighing more than ever. Now everything's photo tournament, so you take a picture and it does an automatic weight for you. If you actually weight these fish, they would be some of the heaviest fish that we've ever seen on our bodies of water. Number one, we got rusty crayfish. We got clear water, so there's a lot of night feeding. We've got a huge abundance of perch. We have 8-year classes of perch coming up, and we have shiners like crazy because the trappers don't get to trap as much as they used to. The temperature game is the same from southern Minnesota to northern Minnesota on trapping, which should be wrong. It should be divided into quarters. And I'll bring that up in my next meeting when I go do that. But so remember this. It's different, but you can get them. And I would use monofilament on an old-fashioned lake because you get loft with your jig. Good for snap jigging. But we're not really snap jigging. We're swimming the baits past the fish. And there's times I use side imaging more. We had a unplugged tournament last year on Cass Lake called the Cystic Fibrosis Fundraiser to bring money towards cystic fibrosis research, and you weren't allowed to use forward viewing. Well, ironically, you could take away their forward viewing. It's the same people at the top, but some of the biggest names came in with like 2 tiny fish because they've never used anything before. So for those people here who've always fished and not used forward viewing much, you're a little bit ahead of the curve because you know how to catch fish blindly like we used to. Well, we just went around and we fished. Side imaging didn't work because low pressure, the fish were like gone. So we would fish a spot and just give it time. And we ended up fourth in that. And I hadn't been there for a long time, but it was a lot of fun. And it was kind of boring compared to now. Because, on an average given day, I see 800 fish, while I'm fishing. And there we just did a lot of talking and eating snacks on the boat and then netting fish once in a while. But it really helped. And then at the end, I think the winners and the second place, they see them on side imaging when everything started rising a little bit and they got all their bag in the last 20 minutes, which is tournament, right? Everybody there's good, but some people have a little bit more stress than others, right? When I did tournaments, I called it a vacation with a tiny bit of stress because you had to walk up behind the person in front of you. They can't close their box. The walleyes are so big, they're hanging out, and you could fold yours like a walleye. But I've also been the person with the box and the person behind me with the one fish. So it's interesting. So why would you do that stress? Because you go to beautiful places, destinations, and you have to learn it like a local. It's kind of cool. And you have to do it in a short amount of time. But let's move on here. There's just too much stuff. The Smeltinator, we don't have to sell you on that. That's a huge seller. So I really love octopus style hooks, but they got drop shots now with all the colors, drop shot style hooks, which is great for leeches, junket crawler. And when you're using a leech on a jig or a hook, how do you hook it? How do you hook it on there? Just like here? Through the head. Yep. Through the sucker. Yep. That's a good way because it really wiggles. So that's a good way. Another good, if you're throwing a jig, because jig's heavy, they kind of have a way of snapping your bait off. I hook it like a minnow. The hardest thing is because I don't have one here to show you, but they wiggle so much, it takes longer than a minnow. You thread it through the sucker and come out just like it's a minnow's head, about that distance. And after a few casts, they kind of stretch out a little bit. So on a jig, because you snap it, you really have to do that. But under bobber fishing, you ever hook a leech wacky style? You're going to love it because instead of having one end moving, you got two ends moving like this. So hook it, and you don't have to do it right in the middle. You could do it offset on one side or the other, and that leech does this. So you got other bobbers and other boats there. Watch what that wacky leech does compared to their one-sided leech. I mean, it's really dancing. It's dancing on fire. And so that way to hook a leech. Snake crawler. How do people use snake crawler in their bobber? Just thread it right on there. It works. It does. Walleyes don't know how long a night crawler is. They don't know what they look like. They just kind of have that, maybe the skin tone of like a mayfly. They have the scent, obviously. So there's no wrong way, but I do like hooking them just past the head, not thread it down the head. Just past it so the head is crooked. And then back in and hide your hook. Snip off the tail. So it's all like different shape, but that thing's still wiggling. Night crawlers, fresh night crawlers wiggle in the water by the fish. We got fish doing that here just recently. And using a 3/4 crawler still has scent, but you can use tiny crawlers. As we get into the bug hatches and it gets tougher and tougher, small tungsten jigs, underspin jigs, little tiny, even ice fishing lures. I got some walleyes throwing slim spoons with a Gamakatsu single hook. And there's time and a place. A traditional Palomar drop shot. I mean, this is like Bass 101, right? Well, they've been in the walleye world now, not real heavy, but they've been in the walleye world here and there. And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But that's great. You can adjust the sinker here. You can put the hook wherever you want. And it kind of looks terrible in that photo, but it works good. But if you get bit by a walleye on these sometimes, you'll just feel that rod go like that and your leech is gone. Oh, my leech is gone. Oh, I had a bite. That means your leech is gone. So you bring it in and you tie a finger of line. So drop shots for walleyes can be probably the fastest way to catch walleyes I have ever seen. I usually guide 1, 2, or 3 people. I don't guide 5. One day I had 5 show up on a second trip, just a half day. And I was playing around with drop shots and I tied my live bait loop knot, the stealth rig, and I put it on 5 rods because I know that these people cast like once every several years. So it's going to be interesting. At 5 people, I said, let's go. The boat would hardly plane. Got out there. We were limited out an hour and 20 minutes. It was insane. We only lost a few leeches, I didn't get any holes in my skin from hooks, and we hammered them because I tied them all at 4 feet. The walleyes were up off the bottom. The bottom was slimy. Everybody's sinker looked like Swamp Thing. And when they're chucking them out there, I was working up a net sweat. I couldn't keep up. Netting fish, netting fish, netting fish. Oh, that one's too big. Throw it back. Net fish. That's drop shots. And it's like that. Sometimes the bobber wins, the jig wins, the spinner wins. Sometimes the drop shot wins. And when do I use the drop shots over that? We'll get into that. We'll see if my laser works here.
Right.
But, yeah.
What about, you showed me a couple years ago when you do the drop shot.
Yeah.
On here, your hook was in line.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, you showed me the loop.
And I got that.
Different.
I got that coming up. It's all part of this. So here I got the drop shot, but I got a finger line. That's a stealth rig. You know, and I get emails. Oh, isn't this that whatever Cain and Abel rig, or isn't this like the stick rig? I don't know. I've been doing this for so many years, for over 3 decades, and you can put it on a loop like a pompano rig, right? And you can do it. You can do it like this. Here's a traditional drop shot that's cleaner, and it's hard to put a bead on a traditional Palomar drop shot. So I found some rubber beads, and I slide that up there for an attraction, and I could double hook a shiner on that. Go in the mouth out and then back in. So you throw it out, and your shiner's like this, right at their level, and you can pull it away and just hold it there. You could drink a coffee, and then look, your pole's bent. You know, so and here. This one right here, specifically I have right here, that's one line. So in order to do the stealth rig and to lock it into place, after you do it, you have to do the same loop knot again, and it puts a knot behind it. Then you can clip it, you can snell it, and I have that up here to show you. But there's a couple different rigs. I like the cylinder sinkers in weeds and in mud. I like the traditional river sinker if I need to hold it in place. Because when you're jigging that, and I got them tied here. When I'm jigging this, I drop the rod tip. So that's locked into place out there. And I like this to stay there. Oh, this is one of them long ones. You see it's way up here. Hey, can we put a hook saver by the eye? I'm just kidding. I bet you they get a lot of questions like that. So there it is right there. And when you got a piece of leech in that, you're slow rolling it, the hook seems to loft away. But I've got that snelled on there. I don't know if they can see this out in the viewer world. Right there, I clipped it. Living on an edge, not if you do the second loop. You could snell it on. And I like hooks that are snelled. That's not coming off there. That's not going to break. And those walleyes that pluck it off other people's drop shots is going to have it past the corner in their mouth. And you are going to get some walleyes that are hooked a little bit deeper, but you got to get them in the boat, right? And I could take a hook out of a walleye's throat, just open the mouth, take a disgorger like a cold front disgorger, go in and turn the hook carefully without tearing. Don't force it. Pretend you're like the best surgeon ever. Go in the gill, look it down the mouth, turn it carefully. There's no obstruction. There's no blood. And we do the surgery every time we have a fish down there. I want that fish to live because I want to catch them again when I need them. But there it is right there. That's if you want to snell it. And this holds it to the bottom better. It's weird. Some days the fish, I'll reel it up to the top there. There we go. And so there is no limits to drop shotting. There isn't. I had some I tied at 2 feet just to stay out of the car beds. So and here's another one here. As in the picture right here. This was killer. There was a day. Of course, there's umpteen boats, and I'm glad. I hope they all caught fish, but I want to catch more. We were using spot tail shiners, and then I double hooked the shiner on here. So the shiner's on here double hooked, and here's a sinker. I could throw it in the fish. They're not getting peppered. It's not hitting the bottom because traditionally they're going to see this jig go down or start jigging or hit the bottom. Here it stopped, and the minnow's doing this. We slayed them. And boat after boat come in, didn't get them. And they're using the same bait, but with a different cadence and a different presentation. So remember that. And this is a Gamakatsu worm hook. And I like to use that. This has been good. I use this on a 6/8 rod, especially in the wind. Go to 7s if there's no wind. And Legend Elite is really nice. You could feel it, and tie that up with a cylinder sinker is fantastic. And if you get a little piece of plastic, just cut your plastic, one that you don't use, and you could add color to this. But if you want to put a bead in a hook, then you're going to want to use the stealth rig with the finger, and then you could add a bead. You could add a float. There's probably people who have done the floating jig heads and all that stuff. The sky's the limit, and you'll notice I have a little rubber band. That does not come with the St. Croix rod. I get that off my vegetables at the grocery store. And so we're eating healthy, a bunch of them. So that worm hook, I'll get it and I'll bring it over the camera. This is a #1 worm hook right here. See that? On a drop shot. Those walleyes that come up and nip your bait. Now try this with a half a crawler. It's not fair. You think technology isn't fair? Tricks aren't fair because technology didn't fill up the live wells that day at the boat launch. And this is a really good one. This is a stinger, a tournament grade wire stinger, G finesse. And everybody who's bass knows that. Well, how do I know? Because I look at the bass stuff because it's going to hook a walleye. They got bony mouths, and I know the gamma cats is going to go right through. So that's one thing here. Let me move on. This is in my boat every day. Drop shots. We haven't had to lean on them since the spot tail bite when no one was catching fish by the bottom. But it's a big thing. You're going to catch more fish. Add a bead, add color, add some different colored hooks. Pill float. We don't use too much color or pill floats or floating jig heads as much in my neck of the woods. There's so many jumbo perch. They just get in the way. I mean, we catch 11, 12-inch perch and you have to leave over and over. And here's kind of my box of goodies. This right here, I have every color, and then I have other boxes also because different sized beads, rubber beads, stuff that isn't meant to be a bead I have in my lines. If it looks good, it probably is good, and put it on there. Basically, like the old way when you do a live bait loop knot like that, it ends up being like this. But in order to cut this, you have to make another loop to add a knot to it. And I'm going to show you that right now. But the nice thing here, you could use a sliding worm hook, just put a bead with a bobber knot underneath, then you can adjust it. You don't have to cut it. You don't have to add to it. With a slip sinker, you could put a bead, 1 or 2 bobber knots. If you're a whipper, put 2 bobber knots up. And leeches. The only thing is big minnows, drop shots. You put a big minnow, he's pulling it down all the time. You know, so that's still something to use with a heavy split shot or just a drop shot clip on weight and pitch into the fish. We don't drag baits by boat past the fish anymore when we're fishing live bait. We pitch the red tail to them, and then you slow reel it. Then I open the bail and I pull this way. So when it hits, I can feed it. So your reel toes tight here, open up the bail and pull it to the side. Then you close your bail and you reel up again, and you're watching those fish come in, and then you can let it go when they hit it. So this will save you from having your friends throw a fit in your boat when they're trying to jam this thing into a hook. Take a finger line, fold it in half, like here, and then thread it on a loop. It is amazing. Unless you got a threader, like a good old-fashioned ice fishing threader, that would work. And then if you just want to just go fishing, I don't want to tie all this stuff. Gamakatsu makes this stuff. So you can just add a finger line with a sinker. You get a line wrapped on noodles with sinkers and just add the length that you need. I tie in pretty fast. And here's a trick question. What is better than a Legend X? I mean, have you seen these things? And there's more stuff coming out. What's better than that? 2 of them. Any questions? I covered a lot. So I'm going to take just another quick minute here and see if I can tie with this yellow line. So if you're in a hurry, there's a lot of ways to do stuff. Make sure when you're using a jig. Make a loop knot, number one. So take your line and roll it. Nobody can see that. Roll it twice because the first time it didn't go around. Then put that finger in here with glasses on. Oh, man. There we go. All right. I could see better in bright sunlight. Okay. Then you're just through there and you got that loop. Take that finger and wrap it through. Pull the knot down, then wrap it over the top.
That will be our next video.
4 or 5 times. It's knots are tough and it's hard to tie with yarn or big line. Then pull it down. There's a big oversized version, but your jig can do somersaults. It's gymnastics star now, and you can hoist fish in the boat with that. Just slide it down. That was kind of in the room here, Ty. Now, real quick, if you want to make a drop shot, but you're in a hurry. Who's not in a hurry? And you don't want to do that other way. You can just take your line and make a loop and wrap it 5 times. And then pull it tight. So there, now you got the loop. Then let's go upside down here. So my knot's hanging down there. See that? You take the top. This locks it in place so you can cut it. And do that. Make sure you do it at least five times. And then pull that bottom knot through with your third hand. Just like that. And then you can clip one in, you can snell a hook on, and you're fishing. But any questions? I better get out of the way. I got to evacuate. Yes, sir.
Let's get back to cables.
Yes.
Dark water, you know, I get that stuff up and it's set. Then I might just keep it going set. What's
Cadence and dark water. Cadence is how you jig the minnow, and that makes or breaks everything. My clients know I jig alongside them. And if I'm catching 3 or 4 to 1, they'll watch how I jig. I do not jig. I'm not jigging an EKG like this. I'm double jigging and reeling once at the same time, and then I pause. So it looks like I didn't do anything, but I skittered it forward. I skitter jigs forward. I do not jig them. The only time I jig them is if they're right under the boat. I'll drop it down, lift it up, and then slowly bring it away, just like ice fishing. So I always think I'm ice fishing, except I get the cast at this one. I want to thank everybody for coming. We appreciate you here at St. Croix.